Yeah, why don't we start there? So today the government of Alberta tabled proposed amendments to the Local Authorities Elections Act, and these were necessary amendments. They were needed. And I should just point out that in addition to being mayor of Calgary, I have also been working on issues of municipal campaign finance reform for about 15 years, well before I was mayor. And so this is an area that I really push on, and I have continued to push. They're ruling around campaign surpluses. I have long said that you should not be able to carry your surpluses forward from one election to the next, because it gives the incumbents an advantage, because they're already starting way ahead of the starting lines. And as I read the amendments now, you have to donate your surplus after the election, which I think is a great thing. I think that means a real level playing field. It takes away power from incumbents. That's important. And I'm pleased to have seen that change. The missed opportunities. There was a necessary change because there was a totally unworkable donation limit in the previous thing, which was $4,000 per donor across the whole province. But it's impossible for me to know if somebody donated in St. Albert. So that has now been moved back to the old rule, which is $5,000 per donor per candidate. Going to per donor per candidate was the right thing to do. $5,000 is too much. Before the $5,000 limit was put in place many years ago, there were only 3 donations in the whole province that exceeded $5,000. The moment the $5,000 limit was put in, $5,000 became the expectation. So everybody gave $5,000, and as a result, the average price for a councillor's race in Calgary went from about $25,000 to over $100,000 in one election cycle. So if we're really interested in taking money out of politics, that $5,000 limit should be lowered, $2,000 or even $1,000, and make the candidates work for that money. The other missed opportunity here was around third-party regulation. The changes that they've made to third-party advertising don't seem to be particularly profound, but what they didn't do is implement spending limits for those third parties. They didn't regulate them better. So right now it would be very easy for a union, a public sector union, or for a land development association to spend a ton of money, totally destroying somebody's reputation, and then spend a ton of money during the election itself in a way that is regulated but not regulated enough. And I wish we had seen more on third-party spending. Now, the very bad thing, and I hope that they will look to change this before passing it, campaign disclosure is really important. Voters need to know who donated to a campaign before they vote. And I have always disclosed my donors, even though I'm not legally required to do so, prior to the election. And I was very pleased when the previous government allowed cities the ability to require that donor disclosure before the election. This Bill 29 removes that. It means that voters will not see who donated to their candidates before the election. That is a massive regressive step backwards. And without that being put back in, I can't support this legislation as a whole.
So the situation before, was it up to cities to actually require that disclosure be made? It was just city by city they could do that, or how did it work previously?
That's correct. And here at the City of Calgary, we were just preparing our bylaw to take to council to propose that we would require that. The reason it was done city by city is there was a thought that small towns with uncontested races maybe didn't need that. I believe everybody needs that. The province should have said it is a requirement for every candidate to disclose their donors, and instead they stepped back and said, you don't have to do it. This, they're portraying that as a cut red tape thing. I don't understand how that's red tape. And it is a huge step backwards because it fundamentally means that you'll be voting for someone with no idea who they might be indebted to.
So cumulatively, when you put it all together, what's the impact of this on local democracy?
I would have said that this is a net positive with some room for improvement, but removal of that disclosure requirement actually is a massive step backwards. we're very lucky at the municipal level because it's nonpartisan, because we have people from every background who are attempting to run for office. It was interesting, if you read the quotes in the press release from the province, they kept talking about diversity of views across the political spectrum. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists who say everything the government does around local elections is to try and get more capital C conservatives elected to office. I don't think that's what this is about, but I can see how people would be suspicious. And that kind of suspicion is just, there's no place for it in local democracy. It's better just to keep your nose clean and your head above water on this stuff.
The government is saying this would make it easier for more candidates to get in the race who are trying to challenge incumbents to have a better shot. Do you think that that's accurate?
Yeah, that should be the goal. The goal should be to take power away from incumbents and make it easier for new entrants to run. And I say that as a 10-year incumbent. But and the big problem here, the challenge with that, is leaving that number at $5,000. It's much easier for incumbents to raise $5,000 donations than it is for newcomers to do so. So they've tried, they've done some good things, eliminating the campaign surplus, that's a great thing. And they've tried to level the playing field with this. But the room for improvement is reducing that $5,000. And again, without the disclosure, that actually really puts the lie to what we're trying to do here.
So is this a step back to the Wild West days?
It shouldn't be, it's not intended to be, but it really did miss the opportunity to step forward.
Could you, for people who don't follow this as closely as you do,
There are people who don't follow campaign finance reform incredibly closely and don't have a list of every single amendment and what its impact is. Who are these people?
can you contrast and compare these donation limits with, let's say, people running for federal office?
Yeah, the donation limits are much higher, even under this new rule, to municipal candidates than they are to federal and provincial candidates. There are no receipts. So in many ways, this is not really comparable to what the province has put on themselves.
And of course, the provincial election commissioner is no more. Who investigates any allegations of
That is another excellent question, and I haven't yet analyzed in detail these amendments, but that had been a problem because in the previous legislation, there were all these rules, but it wasn't clear who had the power to enforce them. In the past, prior to the NDP government's changes, nobody had the power to enforce them. So you could submit a nomination form that just said Mickey Mouse 123 Disney Lane, and we would go, how interesting that you cheated. And there was no ability to do anything about it. So getting that enforcement in place is really important.
You mentioned you wanted to say something about Jamal Denver.
Oh, come on. All I want to say is how great is that? One of the greatest players ever to wear the Flaming C, well deserved, even though he grew up outside of Edmonton. He's been an inspiration particularly to so many kids who for a long time may not have seen themselves in the game of hockey. They may not have thought that hockey was a place for someone who looked like them or came from that background. And Jerome being not only one of the greatest hockey players of all time, also an extraordinary trailblazer, and I'm thrilled that that's being recognized by the Hockey Hall of Fame.
And I just want to add from my colleagues here, John Horgan today, basically they went to stage 3 and they're welcoming Albertans to come, just follow the regular rules, distancing, if you're sick, don't come here, but they're welcoming Albertans to visit. Your thoughts on that?
I just want to remind everybody that as we start to ease restrictions, as we start to get a little bit of normalcy back in our lives, let's remember the pandemic is still here. It's just one outbreak away from, in fact, we have more cases now than we did when we closed everything down in March. And so it really is in your own hands. Think hard when you're making your decisions and make sure that as you make your decisions for what you're going to do this summer and beyond, you remember these 3 things. Number 1, keep your distance, 6 feet or 2 meters or 36 mini donuts apart. Number 2, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, have loads of hand sanitizer, don't touch your face, cough into your sleeve. Number 3, if you're gonna be somewhere where you're closer than 2 meters, like public transit or in a store, you really should be wearing a mask. Our levels of mask wearing here are way too low. And people really need to understand the mask is not a sign of fear. It doesn't protect you. It protects others from you. It's a sign of community and a sign of service.
Is it a sign that tourism Calgary should now go after that BC market to try to entice them here?
Yeah, very much so. As long as people are being safe and abiding by the rules, we're welcoming people, and particularly people who live nearby in British Columbia and Saskatchewan and throughout Alberta. Listen, I have friends who went on a hike in Johnson Canyon, usually wall-to-wall people on a weekend, and they were the only ones there. So this is an opportunity to experience the great things about Calgary and the Canadian Rockies in a way that you may not have that opportunity again. Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.